Did you know that the first self-parking technology was proposed in as early as the 1930s?
Welcome to the second episode of Age of Technology. Today we will be discussing cars. So Henry, what do you consider the start of a vehicle? I was thinking about that and I was wondering where to start. Would you consider the invention of the wheel? Well, of course not. But there were a lot of inventions before the invention of the car. So where do you want to start? I propose engines.
Yeah, I would agree on that. So I would say the first vehicle would be the first motorized vehicle.
Yeah, I would say that as well. So that's nice because that is what I prepared last night. So do you know when the steam engine was invented? It will surprise you. I can say that.
I would say mid 1800s.
Well, you're not even remotely close. First century.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I know, right?
Huh?
It's a Hero's engine, it's called, or an Aeolipile. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly because it's, well, from Egypt. And it's been a long time, but in 1606, the first patent was made for the steam engine. So it took a while, but just like the last episode, a lot of what ifs. What if that invention was elaborated, was investigated? We could have been, I don't know, we could have been anywhere.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling that it was that early.
Yeah, it is just like last time. But in 1672, the first automobile was invented, which of course used the steam engine, and it's not called a car, and that is just a minor difference. But I will come to that later. It was invented by Ferdinand Verbiest, something like that. But it was a steam-powered vehicle as a toy, like really, really small, just made for a Chinese emperor, and it could not drive a person because, it was quite small. But 100 years later, almost 100 years later, the first vehicle which could drive a human was made. And I found a beautiful YouTube link, so I'm gonna send you that, and you should watch that even if you're at home. Well, not if you're driving a car right now, but it's awesome,
Well, so am I supposed to watch it now, or?
Yeah, could you watch it right now? Because
yes.
I think that's nice. You can make a word picture if you want to.
World's first self-propelled vehicle.
Indeed. By Nicholas Cagnat.
Wow, it's pretty it's almost like a steam chamber strapped on a cart with wheels.
It is. Can you tell me about the size?
I'm not sure. It's about bigger than a car, about SUV size.
Definitely.
Like SUV size.
Yeah, it probably twice the width, twice the length. It can only hold one person. And it has one enormous steam engine in front of it.
Yeah, it's like basically an oven that's producing steam. Yeah.
Yeah. Its maximum speed was a stunning 4 kilometers per hour, which is 2.5 miles per hour. It's insane, It weighed 4 metric tons, which is about 8,000 pounds. Right. Yeah. The comments made it. The comments said it's impractical, but it worked. So that was definitely the first automobile, and that got improved over time.
Yeah. So was this more meant to be actually used as a vehicle, or was it more to make a proof of concept?
It was to make a proof of concept because they had horses, and I didn't know what the speed is of a horse, but I can imagine it's about 30 kilometers per hour. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have any use for now. But it has potential, Mm-hmm. And that was proven because 39 years later, just after the 1800s, the first internal combustion engine fueled by hydrogen was made. And as you may know, hydrogen is flammable, explosive, not highly practical, but, it started a new concept, because internal combustion engines are still used today, not with hydrogen. I'm glad it isn't, but a fuel like a gasoline or diesel or petrol or whatever you call it.
So what did they use to extract the hydrogen? Did they use electrolysis?
I imagine. I think that was. Let me look that up real quickly. Because it has to be, otherwise you can't get hydrogen gas.
Right, but that seems like
you can, but
that seems like such a advanced technology. But so as soon as people figured out electricity, they also figured out electrolysis.
Yeah, you do, but you also need a membrane to split the oxygen from the hydrogen atoms.
So that's actually pretty advanced for like 1900 or 19th century.
Yeah, I would say. I did a quick Google, and electrolysis was reported by Michael Faraday. You know him, of course, in 1832. And we're talking about 1808, so I guess it wasn't. Because Faraday made his paper like 24 years later, so it can't be.
And also one thing I wanted to comment on is that to me it's actually pretty interesting. So that the first ever vehicle was so apparently very small and made more as a toy, and after that,
that's right.
So when was the first train locomotive or steam locomotive invented? Because it seems like they first had to scale up to very big sizes then, but then have to scale back and make it efficient enough to actually make it a vehicle for a person sized.
The first train was made in 1804, so that's about 30 years after the first car. The difference is, of course, a train is way more massive, and you need a specific road system, it's called a rail, as you know, to enable that. And I think that's the reason why they started with horses, and a motorized vehicle, a car, would be the next logical invention. Right.
But to me, the order seems kind of weird or something, but yeah.
I do get your point, indeed. So I was talking about a internal combustion engine, and Siegfried Marcus and Nicolas Otto made small improvements on that. I found a few beautiful GIFs. If you have the time to watch them, you should watch them. It's about a 2-stroke engine and a 4-stroke engine. If you study mechanical engineering, you will know all about this, of course. And it's the way air and the fuel, so hydrogen or gasoline, is entered into the system to make the combustion. And it's really interesting to watch, so I would recommend that. And those improvements were going quite slow compared to the batteries, because in 1808 the first internal combustion engine was invented, and it took 80 years before Rudolf Diesel, from diesel, the fuel, invented the 4-stroke diesel engine to make these inventions happen to the point where we are right now.
Yeah, well, to me it makes sense, I guess, that it takes more time, because there are so many parts that have to work together in order to get it working. Whereas a battery is basically just, we have to make sure that it works and delivers power, but that's it.
Yeah, that's right. And that was also the reason why the 2-stroke engine was invented before the 4-stroke engine. The 2-stroke engine has a lot of less moving parts. It's quite easy, actually, and when you go to a 4-stroke engine, well, it's hard to explain because you need to see the GIF, but the 4-stroke engine is way more complicated, and that took some years. So after Rudolf Diesel in the 1800s, a lot of small improvements were made considering automobile safety, like the handbrake or horns or klaxon, if you know. It's quite fun that in 1865 the United Kingdom made a Locomotive Act, which is just a law for these cars, these early cars, because of their safety. People just weren't used to them, and they had to be safe, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's even when with the invention of the steam locomotive, people were afraid that you would blow your brains out because of the speed. So a lot of legends were going.
I've heard
around.
of that. I do not know. Yeah, I do not know if that's actually true, because at the time they were only moving, I don't know, 5 kilometers per hour. It's not that mind-boggling, but
but it's so the steam locomotive went a lot quicker than the vehicles. But I can imagine where they're coming from. That there was a lot of fear for these machines.
Yeah, and now of course we know that's nonsense. It's
right. Yeah, but that's pretty funny that the government is stepping in and saying, okay, we need to regulate this before it's going to get out of hand.
Yeah, and that is in a time where 10 kilometers per hour would be massive with a car, of course. Well, automobile, because a few years later, in 1885, Karl Benz from Mercedes-Benz produced the first actual car. Well, it's hard to draw the line between a car and a automobile, but what they say is a car is a production vehicle, one that is has one concept and is made several thousand times in a factory, for instance.
Okay, that's a clear line to me, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it is, but I do not know if it's fair. They often say the Benz was the first car, but like you already said, Nicolas Cagneau in 1769 also made a car, which I sent you the video of. But is it really a car? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it only really attributes to who are you gonna say made the first car, but other than that,
it's where you draw the line.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this first car by Karl Benz, it has a power in horsepower of 0.75. It's like nothing, A horse is more powerful than that.
By the way, was the horsepower defined before or after that invention? Do you know?
I imagine it's after.
Okay. Well, maybe they already compared it to horses to say, these vehicles, they are not even as powerful as horses.
I don't know if they were even able to calculate that.
Well, I mean, Newton already Isaac Newton already invented calculus, right? So they weren't dumb.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, that first production car, the Karl Benz car, had a maximum speed of 16 kilometers per hour, 10 miles per hour, and that improved quite fast. 12 years later, in 1897, another car was invented, already moving at 45 kilometers per hour, and now you know why the United Kingdom Locomotive Act was actually necessary, because 45 kilometers per hour is faster than a typical horse can run. So, well, things were getting nice, getting started.
Yeah, that's actually pretty impressive how quick that went.
It did. It only took 12 years, like I said, to go to a speed which was never reached before, I might say. I'm not sure that's factual correct, but
I guess
it is quite... Yeah. And also around that time, the first large producers came around. In 1903, the Model A by Ford, you know that one, of course, yes, was produced, and it made tens of thousands of cars, really beginning the era of cars. And then you go to the vintage cars, you know them from the old pictures. There will be a picture in the show notes, I guess. Just open roofs, open cars, they're called. And those changed to closed cars with a roof. All those minor improvements like a rear view mirror, well, which is quite useful. Automatic transmission, glass improvements, airbags in the 1970s.
When was the first automatic transmission system invented?
I was hoping you would ask that. When do you? What do you guess? It sounds like something really recent.
Yeah, but I guess I would say 50s, but...
well, it became available in the 1940s.
Okay.
But it was invented in 1924. Who would know?
But, oh, really? Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you know what's the most stunning part about this?
No.
Now, at home, we still drive a car with a manual transmission.
Yeah, manual transmission. Even after all these years, it's pretty common here in Europe to drive manual transmission cars.
It's been 94 years.
Yeah,
and we still drive manual cars.
I guess it's a part of, or it's also about the pleasure of driving. I guess it's you can be either really lazy and really want automatic transmission, or you just really enjoy driving around and have manual transmission.
Talking about driving lazy, I think you have something to say about that, do you?
Yes, indeed. So as I was preparing the episode, I was wondering, okay, what can I really tell about cars? Because moving forward, there are boatloads of technologies being developed, and as I was, trying to discover these all these kind of things that push car technology forwards, I also realized how many of these systems were already proposed or invented earlier on. So usually I do future of technologies, but I'll start with introducing the subject of autonomous driving with a technology that is actually proposed really early on. So in the beginning of the show, I mentioned this mechanical system. It was proposed in 1934. And the idea was to use 4 jacks with wheels and basically lift up the car and then park it into sideways, park it into the right spot. So that was the first proposed system for automatic parking.
They do have such systems somewhere in Japan, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, they do. But instead of going upwards, it's a massive underground storage room. You just park your car, you step out of it, and the system will take care of that.
Right,
but that's of course not in 1934. That's I don't know, about 10 years ago, I guess.
And that's of course also an external system. This was more meant to be like embedded within the car.
Oh.
Yeah, so
what's the advantage of that? So you can use multi-storage parking?
I'm not sure what the idea was of the invention, but I guess it was just laziness. Maybe, you can lift up your car, you can push it in the right direction, and you don't have to put it in, you don't have to drive it in the same spot. I can imagine that especially the older cars were quite difficult to drive, and maybe therefore also quite difficult to park. So maybe that's why they wanted to have more of a convenient factor in the design.
I can imagine that, but I can also imagine that the first cars were like really, really heavy.
Yeah.
Like the first car I already mentioned, 4,000 kilograms, 8,000 pounds.
Yeah, okay, but that was like that was pre-1900s. And this, of course, is already after the Model A. So I think that weight significantly got reduced.
Still 1,000 kilograms wouldn't surprise me, but continue.
Yeah, and this idea was extended upon by Volkswagen because in 1992 they also proposed an automatic parking system that used 4-wheel steering. So what basically they used the same idea where they move the wheels perpendicular to the direction the car wants to park in and then drive it into the parking spot.
However, why isn't that a thing? That's so convenient.
One thing, of course, is that, for example, that twisting your wheels on the ground leaves rubber marks on the road and also heavily degrades your wheels. So that's not ideal.
Okay, that's true.
And after that, so I just keep going on the automatic parking because I feel like that's one of the first things that like led us into autonomous driving is automatic parking technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So this got developed over the years, and the first systems used like proximity sensors, rear view cameras, radars to get information to the car about obstacles around.
Yeah, that's a thing we already have, right?
Yeah, but like the first...
If you have a new car, they will have a display which tells you what's behind you, how many meters you've left.
Yeah, but that was like the first iteration of this idea was more to give like a bleep when something was near so that you can more easily park. so that you have like a visual or auditive signal, and that can help
That's
you park.
already awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and from there on, indeed, what you said, it's right now what's more common is what's called an OmniView system, where 4 wide field cameras are used, one on every side of the vehicle, and with that, there you can synthesize a like bird view image of your car.
Okay, and what is the use of that? Is it to assist the driver, or is it already going to autonomous vehicles?
Initially it is to assist the driver, because on your dashboard you can, for example, see what's behind the car and then also have a bird view to see what's around you. But of course, this is being extended and already, is implemented, but with fully automatic parking. Namely, you let the car do its thing, and it will park it in the right spot.
I've seen those ads on television, and I gotta say, it looks really awesome.
Yeah, it's super lazy, and I wonder at what point car instructors will stop teaching people when to manually park, and when they'll say, it's so commonplace now, you don't have to learn how to park anymore for your driver's license.
I want to place a bet on that. I'll say 20 years, and you say up or under.
I say up, because also in these days, even though automatic transmission is a very commonplace, or in the Netherlands, you still learn how to manually drive.
You do.
So even though it has been around for 94 years is what you said, at least
something like that,
from when it was proposed, we still drive manually and learn how to drive manually. So I don't think
1924.
Yeah.
So maybe we will, but when autonomous cars are taking over the road, you don't even need to learn to drive anymore. It's just like a taxi, but without the driver.
Yeah, actually, I think this is so the next step is then autonomous driving, and just as a interesting fact, I would say there is a classification system. Where
a level system, you mean?
A leveling system for autonomous driving. So 0 means no automation, and the car can only really give warnings or do intervention for, say, for example, for braking, right? When something is in proximity and the car can brake, but that's really the only thing it can do. So that's level 0.
Interesting.
And then it goes all the way up.
Okay, and what's level 1?
Level 1 is so assistance with steering or acceleration. For example, is that level 1? I think automatic cruise control or adaptive cruise control is
something like that.
Is level 1, I think.
How about power steering? Is that also something that is level 1?
I wouldn't say that is. Oh wait, here it is. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that is level 1 power steering. No, I think that doesn't have anything to do with autonomous driving. Whereas braking, when something is in proximity, that is actually the car deciding, okay, I need to brake and do something.
Okay, so everything that's about the car making a decision on its own, that will go to level 1 or higher. And everything that is just to assist the driver, like mirrors, power steering, like I mentioned, is just still level 1.
Well, no. Let me try to explain it again. It's whenever the car has to do something on its own, but is only capable of doing one specific thing, then it's level 0.
Okay.
And level 1 would be the car can do, for example, adaptive cruise control, where it takes inputs from the surroundings and can only control acceleration. But and this is called hands-on. So the driver still has to have its hands on the steers, be in the driver's seat, and still be able to intervene.
Okay, I get that. That's a stage in which we are right now, or we have surpassed that by small amounts.
And then it goes from level 2 and 3, 4, and level 5 is at the level where you, for example, step into a taxi and the car handles everything on its own. So that is called steering wheel optional because there doesn't even have to be a steering wheel.
Okay, so level 5 is full autonomy.
Full autonomous.
Level 0 is, of course. Level 5 is full autonomous vehicles. Level 1 is just a bit, and it's just like a linear.
Yeah. So indeed, level 2 is called hands off. So where technically the driver would not have to touch the steering wheel. Level 3 is called eyes off. So you can basically still read a book, but you have to be in the driver's seat to intervene. And then level 4 is mind off, where you could basically,
just in case of an emergency, you get a message, and then you had to intervene. That's level 4.
Yes, level 4 is as it is the same as level 3, but no driver attention is ever required for safety. Whereas for level 3, you are still required to sit in the seat and intervene when something is happening.
Okay, so what is the state of the newest Tesla, for example? Is that already level 5? Although they are not permitted on the road yet, but is the experimental progress already level 5?
I wouldn't say so, because I still, even with the newest Tesla, you can still like control the car, right? So have like a steering wheel, throttle and such, right?
Okay, but it isn't necessary.
Yeah, so that will be level 4.
But it does have a steering wheel, indeed.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So quite close to the maximum. That's already nice.
And I found that pretty interesting that there are people actually thinking about this. You know, and it's very much needed, right? Because as car technology is progressing, we also start to think about like legislation, political will to implement these kind of systems, because it's kind of scary to have cars driving on their own in a way.
It is.
However, it's also much more safe, of course. So it's almost like that is competing with each other.
Yes, of course. Are you familiar with the trolley problem?
Yes, indeed. And I saw the video from Vsauce. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yes, and that is exactly how Michael is starting to state the problem is. But what if a car really has to make difficult decisions? How are we gonna make sure that a car makes the right decision?
Do you have to value the driver or the person in the car above anyone that's outside of the car, or is it vice versa?
Well,
it's all difficult, and how do you implement that in a system which is just made by computer engineers?
Yeah, and that is that is something that very smart people will have to think about. Luckily, not us, because that will take quite some years to debate on. And probably that will also depend on what country you are, or even in America, what state you are in, to what extent self-driving cars could actually self-drive.
I really hope that is something which will unite all the countries, that the legislations will be the same anywhere you go. That would make the manufacturers way more. It would make it way more easy to get this technology started, don't you think?
Ideally, of course, but I'm, to be honest, kind of skeptical, because this world doesn't want standards. For example, we've had we have the auxiliary standard, the aux jack standard, but Apple is saying, screw you, we're gonna throw that away. And also,
how about no headphone jack?
So I'm not too certain if we're gonna have like one geopolitical standard for that. I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
And then sort of an extension to the autonomous driving would be vehicle-to-vehicle communication, where cars could communicate with each other and that way prevent more collisions, for example. Because they can tell each other like when they are in each other's proximity, or what their path is, their predicted path, and that way they could, try to prevent collisions from happening.
Yeah, so on highways you can drive like 1 centimeter behind the person in front of you, but also on intersections you can just drive straight ahead, and you just know you won't hit anybody because everything is pre-calculated.
Yeah, indeed. And the situation you were saying that you can drive really closely to the car next to you or in front of you is actually called platooning, where you can have a large group of cars moving in one speed, one direction. And that way, of course, also save some money.
Yeah, especially aerodynamic drag will be reduced. Yeah. And that's quite interesting. My uncle is in the transportation business. He is a truck driver. And his boss already told him that in the next 5 years, this technology will be implemented in driving long-haul trucks. Just 10 trucks 1 meter behind the truck in front of it. And that would reduce costs tremendously, of course.
Yeah, I even read that, I think it was on Reddit where there was an article where the first truck already drove autonomously cross country. So it went from West Coast to East Coast autonomously. So indeed, these technologies are progressing pretty quickly.
Especially in the States or in Australia, where just long straight roads without any traffic, without any cities. This is quite easy to implement, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the only problem, of course, still is that if you want to have vehicle-to-vehicle communication, you'll need two vehicles that can actually communicate. So it will probably take years and years, maybe even decades, before this actually will, be implemented.
Of course, and if you want the perfect intersection, all vehicles need to be added to the system.
Yeah, so that's I think it's a really nice in-between step where right now the current developments are we're going to make sure that we have autonomous vehicles so that we can after that progress to vehicle communication.
That's indeed nice.
So we already talked for longer than I thought about autonomous vehicles, and I only feel like
that's because autonomous vehicles are really, really interesting.
Yeah, and we only barely scratch the surface. So
one thing about autonomous vehicles, which you are not allowed to forget. Did you know that there is one autonomous vehicle in our city?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, it's between the station and somewhere on campus. It just
is it like
what?
Is it like a taxi?
Yeah, it is. It only goes 10 kilometers per hour, maybe even slower. It only drives when it's evening, when it's not busy. But it works. I've seen it. Okay. It's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know this. Cool.
Yeah, it's like a cube. It's the most ugly vehicle you will ever see in your life, but it's really awesome.
That's of course also the issue with, but the Google self-driving car also is like super ugly, but they'll catch up, I think, with design as soon as the technology is there.
Yeah, look at Tesla. They already made the design quite nice. They tried to hide all the cameras.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about, also new fueling or methods for fuel, but I think I'm going to skip that because I didn't really look well into it, and it's also like a topic of its own, I feel.
Mm-hmm. That might be correct. Also related to the batteries of last time.
Yeah, kind of. Then the last little bits I had were some miscellaneous kind of technologies I thought were pretty cool. So
tell me about it.
One way, of course. Yeah. So one way to enhance the driver experience is the augmented reality dashboard. For example,
can I ask one question first? Augmented reality, like in the Pokemon Go game on your mobile phone, where you just see what's behind you, and then a picture is implemented in that. Like, how to describe that? Is it like Pokemon Go?
Yes and no, I guess, because there, for example, BMW has already implemented a windshield display where information is being displayed on the windshield.
Oh,
So,
like
like how
that.
quick you're going and where you're heading, for example. And think about it, you could just, show the where you have to take a turn on your windshield. So you don't
Uh,
have to look down on your, what's it called?
Dashboard, TomTom,
TomTom, yeah.
navigation system, Google
Right,
Maps.
thanks, yeah. So
Yeah.
you don't have to look down on your navigation system, but you can actually see it on the screen.
That's
And
of
this
course
can-
a major implementation. Could it also indicate whether there is a car in your blind spot or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It could give you like a little warning sign, or for example, even draw a box around a nearing object that might be on collision course. All kind of stuff like that might be implemented. So it's pretty cool, but it still needs some research. I think this one was the most interesting for me to read because this idea sounds like a very silly idea that they tried to came up with in the 30s or 40s, but this has been something that is still being developed, even though it's not commercially available yet. It's airbags to help stop cars, and you
Okay,
wouldn't
so
think about
instead
it, right?
of a airbag in a steering wheel, you would attach it to the front of your car to lengthen the collision zone.
No, not like that, because we already have the front of the car is already designed to make sure that it can compress to shorten your stopping distance.
It
Or
is.
to lengthen it. But no, the way this works is that these bags would make sure that there is a friction coating that would help them to slow down the car. So it would inflate below the car, and it would make sure that if a collision is inevitable, that it would at least stop the car quicker.
Oh, like extra brakes.
Yeah, because brakes, of course, especially if we already have ABS, but there is only so much that you can do if you have to brake very abruptly. So this would be something that would help to more quickly stop the car if really needed.
Would it be like a big red button on your dashboard to activate it, or would it be something like level 1 systems? Where it,
I think it would be more like that, yes, because of course, if a collision is inevitable, it probably means that you were either not paying attention or that your reaction speed was not quick enough. So that's definitely something that the car has to decide on its own.
Okay, interesting. But I would imagine that's hard to implement in a new car, especially with the autonomous vehicles coming up. That it might be not necessary anymore. But we'll see about that.
Fair enough, indeed. That's a good point. So might be redundant. Yeah,
it might. But it's always good to think about safety of cars.
So one last thing that came across Reddit as well, I think, and that was I thought pretty interesting, is a new car developed in Japan. It's called Hiriko. And it's a car that's
like Dutch, not like Japanese, but well, continue.
Hiriko. I'm not sure what the pronunciation is, but it's a car that can fold itself. So it can make itself fold up, make itself smaller, and then you can park in a smaller spot, which is of course really useful in Japan.
That's indeed awesome. It's really useful in large cities.
Yeah. Still, the car looks kind of weird. It almost looks a little bit like a transformer, and I guess it's also not super efficient. But it's I can put a link in the show notes to a video where it's being showed, and it looked pretty cool.
Okay, I was googling one thing real quick because I seem to remember one episode of Donald Duck where the genius, what's this called? Willy
Wortel in Dutch.
Willy Wortel in Dutch, but you know who I'm talking about, I guess, did also invent this thing, but I just can't find it on Google. Maybe people know.
Huh. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how sometimes science fiction or comics come up with these ideas, and only after the fact people start to think, hey, maybe this actually could be very useful.
I just let the imagination flow, and maybe you will invent something really, really useful.
Yes. So maybe we'll talk about one of these inventions in another episode.
Maybe we will. So, where can people find us?
People can find us in all sorts of places, and
But most importantly,
YouTube, I guess. Our website, of course.
yes, of course.
Our website, yes.
Yeah, the outro of the last episode was we do have a website, I guess, and well, right now we do actually have a website.
Yes, it's ageoftechpodcast.com.
That's right. That's it. ageoftechpodcast.com. But that, of course, will be in the show notes. And like Henry said,
Yes.
stuff will also be on YouTube and various other places like iTunes and, well, the place you will be listening right now.
So that's it for us. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.